Welcome, everybody, to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And on this show, we tend to cover the stories the mainstream media ignores, and we are not cozying up with any politicians on this show, like you might have seen this week by the mainstream media hanging out in Milwaukee at the RNC. We've got a lot of news to cover today. The water tower mystery. We're getting more truth and details now about what actually happened on Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania. Massive breakdown of competence by the Secret Service, but who was on that water tower? We have video that we're going to show you, which is unbelievable. This confirms, I think at least in part, what 10 eyewitnesses who've now come forward to say. We saw someone on that water tower, and we're going to talk about who might have been up there.
Plus cracks in the dam of the Biden campaign. Now there are sort of rumblings about how the president has softened to the idea of stepping aside, letting someone else run against Trump. Okay, again, we're going to talk about how they are all traitors. They are all turning on each other. It's a bit of Schadenfreude. Am I saying that right?
Schadenfreude?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, he's stepping down. I mean, let's make no mistakes about it. He'll step down, and likely this weekend is when it's going to happen.
Right.
So, and Barack Obama is pulling the strings on all of this.
Right. So we're going to take a look at what we know right now at this hour, which will be changing rapidly. We're also going to talk about how Elon Musk is giving the middle finger to California because they are a draconian state of, authoritarianism who want to take your kids. So we're going to talk about how much that will cost California, why he's doing it, and how California could have avoided this just by getting rid of Gavin Newsom, really.
And then if you've been watching the RNC, you've been seeing all of the media coverage of it. You've seen Fox News very effusively hanging out with different politicians. There's a lot of love going on between the news business and all the politicians at the RNC. But we're not there on purpose, and we're going to have a critical lens as to all of the money that's been flowing in from the deep state into the RNC and the DNC. Yes, the Uniparty. Whitney Webb is going to be here. We're going to look at JD Vance. We're going to look at some really interesting takes that she just published a brand new piece on this. Arguably one of the best journalists in the world, who's done her homework better than really anybody. She's going to be joining us a little bit later in the show, and she's going to blow our minds as usual. She always does.
Most likely.
I mean, there's never a time when I watch any conversations I've had with Whitney Webb where I'm like, I didn't learn anything. Every time I talk to her, I learn like 10 big things.
Right. And I'm always like, wait, how did you even know to pull that thread? And where would I have gone if I wanted to follow this? Her mind is a virtual media map of everything that we are missing in life.
It is
I'm not entirely certain that she's of this world, because just the way her mind works is like I feel like I have a pretty fast mind, and there are times I'm just like, holy cow, that's like just making those connections in real time it's just amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's remarkable. We need more journalists like her, so we'll have her on a little bit later in the show. But first, we have been reporting from day one that someone was on that water tower. And now 10 eyewitnesses, 10, have come forward to confirm that, yes, someone was on that water tower. So you can throw all these 10 people out. You can say, oh, they're just nuts. They're just Trump supporters. They're just nuts. Or you could listen to them. Who was on that water tower the day that President Trump was shot? And now we have video of a figure, someone on that water tower. Now, initially, RSBN Network originally aired this wide-angle footage from their live stream on their X account during this day. We've now zoomed in and added some text so you can see a figure moving on top of this water tower. So take a look at your screen here.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Now you see that figure disappear.
Wait.
Now you see that figure reemerge. Okay? Now that figure reemerges. So interesting, right? Now we're going to zoom in. You can see this dark figure at the very top here as President Trump is speaking right before the shots are fired. And then this person right after, about 4 seconds after the shots are fired, steps out. You can listen to the ducks out of the view.
and they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know.
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, "It's the sniper! It's the sniper!" And he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
Gentleman behind me, I was one seat. He was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
So unbelievable. And almost everyone in the chat is saying, I see it. Yes, I see it. I knew right from the beginning that this was suspect.
Yes, it is sort of Bigfoot-esque because it's such a zoom, right? Someone in the chat is saying this looks like Bigfoot, but it's clearly something moving of its own accord that is not an animal.
Large. It's not a bird,
right?
Which you wouldn't see. Some people are like, oh, no, because you see the X on the front of it, which is the painting. And maybe we can play it again here. How many of you guys in the chat want to see this again? So we're going to roll it again. I won't talk over it this time. I want you to watch, though, as this figure steps in and steps back. Right after the shots are fired, step right before, and then right after the shots are fired, 4 seconds after, steps back. Watch.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, water towers don't
that chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
So that's what we have today on this water tower angle. Again, a number of eyewitnesses. It was started out as 2, then 3, then 4, now 10 eyewitnesses coming forward to confirm. And of course, people are asking, hey, whatever video you have, you were there. If you shot video, any angle, it doesn't matter. And even if you shot it an hour ahead of time, it doesn't matter. Please send in your video so that we can analyze it and take a look from different locations and angles to confirm all of this. Everyone had an iPhone.
Who's saying this? Every investigation now? We have 10.
Right.
So who specifically wants the video?
I do.
Oh, you.
I'm calling for it. I haven't seen anyone asking for it other than, it's just people on social media who want it. But
okay.
Well, at least we know that the congressional hearings they're going to have is going to clear this all up so that we know exactly what's going on. At least we have that confidence.
Well, right. So how many, though, do we have? It's hard to count now. We have the Senate Oversight. We have DHS, Department of Homeland Security. We have the FBI and Secret Service. And then the Biden administration has separately said that they will investigate. Have I missed any? So how do we have any confidence that this is overlapping use of our tax dollars because we can't trust any one of them? Well, so that's not awesome.
We have a redacted investigation, which is free because this show is free, right? So
right. And Speaker Johnson has also ordered a House investigation. So that's how many? 6, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they said they're going to be transparent with the American people. So, we have to take faith in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable video. Well, senators finally got their private meeting with the FBI and the Secret Service. And we now know that Senator Marsha Blackburn says that the Secret Service knew about a threat prior to President Trump walking out on stage. That is confirmed. We know of a threat before the president comes out on stage. Why in the hell did you let him come out on stage? And also, why did you not let his team know about the threat? She learned this from a briefing with the Secret Service and the FBI, did Senator Marsha Blackburn. And now it's been confirmed that the Secret Service saw the shooter on the roof 20 minutes before he allegedly opened fire. And I say allegedly opened fire because I'm not convinced that he fired anything, to be honest with you. I'm not convinced that Thomas Matthew Crooks is the guy that we're even looking for. Maybe a part of it, but he's the alleged shooter. They saw him 20 minutes on the rooftop before he fired a shot. Watch.
The stunning new images tonight, the new details from the investigation into the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Video obtained by ABC station WTAE appearing to show the alleged gunman Thomas Crooks walking the perimeter of the rally about 1 hour before the former president was shot. And tonight, the FBI briefing lawmakers, and a disturbing timeline has now emerged. The gunman was actually identified as a person of interest 62 minutes before the first shots were fired. He approached security, but when he saw the magnetometers, he apparently backed away. And the Secret Service saw him on that roof a full 20 minutes before he fired at the former president.
Yeah, 20 minutes. I see people in the chat saying 3 hours. Yeah, they reported he came initially 3 hours ahead of time. Also, we have independent verification that Trump campaign had sent out emails prior to the arrival of individuals coming to the event, and they were told under no uncertain circumstances, absolutely no bags. No bags are allowed to be brought in here. Nothing like that. And of course, we now know that he brought a backpack in. How did the Secret Service allow a person of interest to bring a backpack in? Not only that, a ladder and a rifle, but that's just a separate part of this whole story.
Here's the thing, like, just how batshit this is, that this guy didn't show up like a week before and plan this thing out. He's literally planning this assassination attempt right there in front of Secret Service. They're watching him do it. I mean, it's like you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail when the guards are guarding the prince in the castle and he's like writing the note and he fires it out the window and they're just staring at him the whole time. It's like that's like what's going on. Yeah, exactly. This guy's like planning this assassination attempt right under the nose of Secret Service. They're watching him do it and they do nothing. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, they have the video of him an hour ahead of time, just like walking the grounds. He's like, this building right here would be a really good spot.
But he had a rangefinder on him. He was using a rangefinder that you use in golf to know how far to drive. So and they even mentioned, the police mentioned that.
Exactly.
That's wild.
What's amazing to me, so again, to Philip's point, that's why this is leading me to believe, again, this is me saying this, okay, leading me to believe all of these data points of him being there, being seen, he's wandering, he's almost trying to be as conspicuous as possible, right? So that we all believe, like, this is the guy. We want you to walk around. We want you to walk around so that, if people have cell phone cameras, just walk around and just kind of walk around so that later on we'll have video of you just kind of walking around. Like, that's what this is leading me to believe right now. They wanted him to be as conspicuous as possible. Now, that's me speculating. Okay, we step out of the realm of facts here, which we've just shown you, to me speculating. But why else would he be walking around as a data point? We know that he goes through the magnetometer. He's got a backpack.
Let them see you.
Yeah.
Act suspicious.
Walk with a ladder. Walk with a gun.
Yes, you are the patsy, so play the role, please.
Yeah, people need to see you in order to be the patsy.
That's what it feels
Oswald.
like, right? And again, this is speculation at this point.
Yeah,
what we're talking about right now.
Anyway, so Senator Marsha Blackburn says, I just got off a briefing with the Secret Service, the FBI. I'm appalled to learn that the Secret Service knew about a threat prior to President Trump walking on stage. I have no confidence in the leadership of Director Cheadle and believe it's in the best interest of our nation if she steps down from her position. The Secret Service, of course, has blamed the failure on local police in Butler, Pennsylvania. They said they assigned the building where the shooter was to the local police, but then the local policeman told Fox News that was not true. So there's seems to be some consternation between local police, that could be state police, and the Secret Service. But ultimately, Secret Service has the day. They have the buck stops with the Secret Service. So you can blame it and point the fingers all you want. But if you're not marshaling your soldiers properly, that's a failure of you, the Secret Service. They say they were the only ones responsible for this. The local police says we're only responsible for traffic detail, which would mean the Secret Service is lying and, of course, blaming, pointing the fingers here. Of course, Cheadle is in hot water. I can't believe she still has a job at this point. As we reported yesterday here on the show from the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas has basically been telling her to keep her mouth shut. Don't do interviews. Don't talk. They didn't want her testifying. Mm-hmm. They don't want her meeting right now with senators, which is unbelievable. And last night, though, for some strange reason, Kimberly Cheadle shows up at the Republican National Convention. So she's at the RNC in Milwaukee, and apparently she was holed up in a suite upstairs. And then she walks out, and people saw her. They're like, wait a minute. That's the director of the Secret Service is here at the RNC? Talk about being conspicuous, right? Then senators saw her. They confronted her. She tried to run away from U.S. senators. John Barrasso, Marsha Blackburn. Watch this moment. She's trying to run up the stairs.
This is exactly what you were doing today.
This
on the call.
was an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President
She's like, let me go up the stairs. Let me get away from these senators. It's not like they're just like random people. They are senators of the United States asking her questions. They finally catch up to her, and they demanded answers. Listen to Senator Barrasso finally grilling her when she has nowhere else to run. Watch this.
Questions that we wanted to ask, we felt we didn't get any of the responses that were necessary from you. Very disappointing in your leadership. I have called for your resignation, and I'd rather you resign tonight or start answering our questions right now about the death threat to President Trump and allowing him to go on stage in Pennsylvania at a time when he'd already been alerted that there was somebody with a spotter, all these situations already identified an hour before, and you let him go on stage without the knowledge of him, the team on the ground, and you put him within less than an inch of his life.
Unbelievable. Now, MSNBC... Go ahead.
If this doesn't show you that she doesn't make good decisions, like, I don't know what does. Like, where in what world would she think right after this happened that she would walk around at a Trump rally, basically, is what the RNC is now, and think that she was just going to, just walk around and like, hello, hey, everybody.
There? Yeah. Right.
Is
Unless
she there
the
to show
optics
leadership?
are, oh, wait, I got to make sure that Trump is safe.
So I'm here to make sure he's safe.
Right.
Yeah.
That
really?
makes no sense.
Like, is she ever involved in a field operation?
She could have avoided all that if she could run faster than a 19-minute mile.
And I think those stairs look pretty steep. That looked pretty dangerous walking up those stairs.
That was a slope. So that was a slope. So that's why she was so slow on those stairs. Secret Service agents can't go up slopes pretty fast.
Yeah.
The other piece, Joy Reid, MSNBC. Joy Reid, of course, nut job over at MSNBC. She tweeted out a video, not of her on the MSNBC set, but it was like a private video where she's like, I'm not convinced President Trump was even shot. I think that we need answers. She said, I don't know that he was hit with a bullet. He might not have even been hit with a bullet. He might have just been hit with some piece of glass. He might not have been hit with anything. We don't know. We demand answers.
With a tortilla? Okay.
Maybe a tortilla chip.
Could have been.
Have you ever bit down hard on a tortilla chip?
No.
Might get a bloody mouth. So Joy Reid over at MSNBC thinks this is a conspiracy and maybe it was staged.
That's so interesting because she doesn't think COVID is a conspiracy. She didn't think the Hunter Biden laptop was a conspiracy. There's a lot of things she doesn't think are conspiracies when it doesn't fit the narrative.
Or she does think they're conspiracies.
But this, okay, got it. Play that out. Tell me. I'm interested.
Thanks, Joy Reid.
Yeah.
We got more. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Grim had just brought up this point in our chat, but he said he hasn't heard any talk of bullets taken from the victims or the scene matching Crook's weapon. And you'd think that's something that we would have heard about. I haven't heard anything about that. Like if they've actually matched the bullets to the weapon.
Yeah, we forget we can do that.
That would come out.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've got a lot more to get to here. Yeah, I'd love to hear the ballistic stuff on this too. It'd be really interesting. They know exactly where these things hit. I'm sure there's shell casings up there. Can we hear some of that, see some of that? Let us know about that. That'd be really interesting.
We'll get it in 30 years in a documentary that's on the History Channel.
Right. Yeah, 75 years when everyone's dead, and then they still won't release the documents. Like that's what we're still stuck with here. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. We're going to look at President Biden stepping down. Will he step down by Saturday? We're going to show you the new evidence on that, and who do you think will replace him on the Democratic ticket? There's a lot of sort of horse trading going on right now as to who will be on the ticket. Let us know your thoughts on that, and we're going to talk about that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at the Wellness Contagion Kit, because you have heard us covering the bird flu pandemic, all of the hysteria around bird flu. Well, if you've been watching our segments about it, you know that there are already therapeutics for human-to-human contact of bird flu if you are able to get your hands on it. Now, if past is prologue and the therapeutics that we had to treat COVID were unavailable to the wider audience of or greater humanity, well, then maybe you should think about getting a wellness kit so that you are prepared in order to protect you and your family. You can get the meds you need before you need them. This is what Dr. McCullough means when he says that the best treatment is early intervention against disease X, because they are not telling us what disease X is. That's where the Wellness Company has your back with their Contagion Emergency Kit. They have a variety of medicines to treat respiratory illness, all of which you you'd need in order to be in the hospital, but the wellness company just removes the red tape. And they have 4.9 star reviews. That's their average. So you can check them out for yourself and use the promo code Redacted to get 10% off at checkout. And again, this is another thing with our advertisers is it's incumbent upon you to learn, does this work for my family? Will it help me prepare for whatever globalists throw my way in order to break, I don't know, the global economy and the healthcare system. So again, go to twc.health/redacted. Use promo code Redacted to get 10% off. That's twc.health/redacted.
All right. Well, President Biden is set to step down this weekend. Barack Obama's plan to replace Joe Biden is here. It's over. President Biden is stepping down this weekend as expected. We've been reporting that now for about a couple of weeks now. We expected, and we reported last week that sources were pointing to this week that President Biden would step down early in the week. We anticipated. But of course, there was a little assassination attempt that got in the way, and that sort of soured the mood for them to step down. And there was some concern, of course, from Democrats that maybe it would be too soon to do that. Maybe they could jockey some positions to allow him to stay in the race. Now that ship has totally sailed. And Barack Obama, according to the New York Post, is the Barack stabber. This is their headline today. Barack stabber. Obama turns on Biden, pressures president to drop 2024 bid. So again, Saturday looking likely. Sources are saying from the Democratic side that he'll likely step down from the 2024 ticket on Saturday. NBC News, the liberal media is now confirming this from these private meetings, that's what they're hearing. And all of these Democratic aides are taking to television to confirm it, that Biden will step down this weekend. Watch.
We're back with breaking news. NBC News is now learning that Joe Biden and his world, they're bracing, at least Biden world is, for the possibility that President Biden will step aside from the 2024 race. Quote, there is now a palpable sense that the ground has shifted from under him, according to 5 people with knowledge of the situation, even among some of the president's most defiant backers internally, who now believe the writing is on the wall. NBC's Natasha Korecki is one of the reporters who broke this story. She is on the phone. Back with us is David Jolly. Natasha, this is very deeply sourced. I want to read 2 more quotes from this reporting. One is a person close to Joe Biden who says, we are close to the end. And a person who spoke with a senior campaign official said they're finally realizing it's a when, not if. We just spoke to Quentin Folks, who said Joe Biden's mind has not changed. He's not going anywhere. But what is your reporting? Tell us more.
Well, our reporting is very different behind the scenes than what, Folks and others are saying publicly right now. And that is that what is happening around Biden right now is just unsustainable. The calls from allies, the people who have insisted to us and to others that he isn't going anywhere, we're now hearing them say things have changed. It's as you just mentioned, it's not an if, it's when.
It's not an if, it's a when. And then, of course, yesterday we have Go ahead.
I was just going to say, think about it. Like, let's say Joe Biden didn't agree to any of this. What is the best way to do this is just start saying, hey, we're just going to start saying it. We just start saying it, and he's going to have no choice because he's not going to be like, oh, they're running these ads and fracture the party even more. So even if he hasn't agreed, putting this out there, he's pretty much going to have to.
Or not just him, but his people, because he won't understand that people are backstabbing him clearly. So his people are not going to come out there and say, actually, they're all turning on us and we never agreed to anything of the sort. Then it just shows how much the Democratic Party is fractured, which, of course, we know that.
Right. It's kind of like getting up at the Academy Awards and ripping open the envelope, even though it doesn't say what it says. It says you read out in somebody else's name, and the winner goes to Clint Eastwood, even though he's not on the, and then he stands up and so it doesn't really matter. If you say it, he becomes the winner. And then if they have to put the horse back in the barn later on, it doesn't matter. That horse has already left the stable. Right. And so I think that's a great point, David. They do this all the time in politics, and they're trying to get out in the media to say this. And we're going to get to that part of it in a second, because yesterday COVID hit Joe Biden once again. I think this is the 3rd time now that he's gotten COVID. He's had, I think, 4 vaccines. He's had like multiple booster shots. He tweeted out, "I'm sick." Okay. And then about an hour later, he tweets, "I'm sick of Elon Musk and his rich buddies trying to buy this election." Oh, and people, liberals were like, "Well, that was a genius move. That was a genius tweet. You held us for an hour." See the time difference there? 20 hours, 19 hours. There was quite a bit of difference in time. I'm sick of Elon and his rich buddies.
The I'm sick one is probably the first time he's ever tweeted himself. That he's just like, "I'm sick."
Right.
And they're like, no,
like,
we got to add some more. He got a hold of his phone. Crap, how'd he get the login?
By the way, look how many different... Yeah. I was going to say, by the way, look at how many like impressions that one got. It got like 16 million impressions versus the second one, which had like far less. You know, people were like, look at that. 20 million versus, the other. Yeah, they're 169 million versus 20 million.
Right. Like, oh, you're going to tell us something real? Oh, it's just a campaign. Okay.
Oh, it's just, yeah.
I'm not in on this.
So anyway, he gets COVID, right? It's very, very convenient because a day before he told the press that if he got sick or if his doctors said that he, was not fit because of some sort of a condition, that he would consider maybe stepping down. And then within 24 hours, he has COVID. And Miranda, it's all very convenient. And now he's going to take a few days isolating. They're going to cancel campaign events. That's interesting because Miranda Devine, of course, who broke the Hunter Biden laptop story and everyone mocked her. She was 100% correct. She tweeted this: "A day before Joe Biden announced he has COVID, the no-fly zone alert for pilots showed he was flying to his beach house in Rehoboth Wednesday night until Sunday night. In other words, this 4-day recuperation was pre-planned. Coincidence? Did he know he had COVID when he flew to Nevada Wednesday and met with people without a mask on and shook hands with people? Kissed people?" Okay. Nancy Pelosi held a private meeting, and we now know this, to David's point earlier. So how do we know all these private meetings? It's because the Democrats then went to the press. Pelosi privately told Biden polls show he cannot win and will take down the House of Representatives. Biden responded with defensiveness. Again, the only reason we know this is because Democrats leaked it to the press. It was not Republicans. There was not a Trump aide hanging out on the walls of the White House. This was Democrats leaking this to the press. Nate Silver tweeted this. He's no conservative. He's, more of a liberal pollster than anything. He said, so they basically held an intervention with Biden and it didn't work. So now they're leaking details publicly. Yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was there, told him in this private meeting that money is drying up. All the donor money is drying up. Chuck Schumer, who was there.
So private.
So private. Now they all share this information with the press. And by the way, we also learned a lot of private details from this meeting, kind of really embarrassing details from this private meeting. So he's sitting there, President Biden is, and all these Democrats are telling him, it's over, buddy. It's over. You need to drop out. He's getting defensive, which he does. Someone hands him a slip of paper, one of his aides, that says, you need to be nicer. You're sounding really defensive. And so he reads it. You know how he just reads things out like in the teleprompter? Pause, repeat. Well, that's what he does. He's like Ron Burgundy. So he literally reads the note out loud that someone handed him. And then he says, be nicer. You sound defensive. I'm sorry.
It's like the scene from Annie where Daddy Warbucks is in the... Did I just read a commercial? Yeah. Drop page. It's my favorite.
Daddy Warbucks. So the Biden camp, of course, is denying that they've been prepping for Kamala Harris, that they put together a transition plan for Kamala Harris. She will become the nominee, of course, with President Obama delivering a rousing speech at the DNC. This is my informed speculation that President Obama will deliver a rousing speech at the DNC, and he will be the one to really make the case for Kamala Harris, trying to reignite some fire within the Democrats. And I think it's very telling, actually, yesterday, Rachel Maddow on the air yesterday on MSNBC, because the rest of the network, MSNBC, were all reporting the same thing, that Biden is being forced out. He's going to be done. He's going to likely be done by this weekend. Then Rachel Maddow, who's been a huge fan of President Biden, she gets on the air and reads out that a 31-point drop has occurred among black women voters in America for President Biden. That President Biden has lost 31% from black women voters. So how do you remedy that? Dun, da, da, da. Kamala Harris, right?
Okay.
So it's a very convenient poll to be reading out on the same day.
That's what they think, that black women are that able to be manipulated because of somebody who might look like them. That's what they think of black voters.
Right. Yeah. They think that they're that manipulated.
They want to help.
Yeah. Well, for decades, they've been manipulated. Black voters have been manipulated for decades by Democrats and lied to. And you've seen over this election cycle, many black voters coming out, making social media videos and interviews have said, we've been lied to for 40 years. We thought that they had our best interests at heart. We've been lied to.
Yes.
And we're done. So can Kamala Harris save them?
As long as black voters might want to turn the other direction, because when illegal immigration is a thing and a problem to this extent, black voters and black people lose their jobs. Black incarceration goes up. Have they noticed that, or are they still just going to say, I mean, they really think that they're that dumb that like that person looks like me. That person's a woman.
And she might not
I'll
even
vote that way,
and
right?
She's not even, I mean, she's not. Right? I mean, she's Indian and Puerto Rican, right?
No,
so
she's Bahamian, I believe. She's Caribbean and half Indian.
Yeah.
Yes. But they really, according to them, representation matters for everything.
Right. It doesn't matter. It's identity politics all the way.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter that we'll screw you over, that the price of putting food on the table is tripled now in your family. Hey, I'm a person of color, so you should just vote for me. Mm-hmm. I'll screw you over later, but hey, just vote for me.
Right.
Like that's how this goes.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but looks like the walls are closing in on President Biden. Let us know in the comments below. Do you think that Biden will drop out by Friday, maybe Saturday? My money is on Saturday. I thought it would have happened earlier in the week, but of course you had the assassination attempt, which changed their plans. But donors are not happy and they want him out.
But you know what, though? Because last weekend, if you had asked me, what did I do? I doom scrolled the whole weekend because of the Trump assassination attempt. And so if that's what's going to happen over the weekend, then I better clear the decks, because if Biden actually resigns, that's what I'm going to do, is doom scroll all weekend again. And,
yeah.
I'm very busy.
I should be very clear. When I say resign or steps down, I mean from the campaign. Like there's no indications that he's going to step down as the president of the United States. And there's rumblings that maybe he would do that. He would resign the presidency to Kamala Harris to allow her to become president ahead of the DNC. And then she'd have a few months of actually being president. But I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't have any indication that that's going to happen. So
if that happens, I'll do more than doom scroll. I'm going to walk into the ocean.
If he actually resigns the presidency.
And she becomes president.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
By the way, video has just emerged. We won't show it to you here on the show because we'll probably get dinged for it. But video has now emerged of a close-up of President Trump's ear being ripped open by something, likely the bullet that hit him and ripped through his ear. So that has now, so Joy Reid.
Is that what you got there? That's gross.
I'm showing it here. But so Joy Reid, if you think that's still a piece of glass randomly hitting him, you might want to reconsider your position on that, or maybe a Tostitos chip hitting him. Your Joy Reid at MSNBC, your conspiracy theory might just got thrown out the window.
Okay. Well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about why Elon Musk is ditching California, because it's a terrifying place to be. It's my home state, and I will say that with full gusto. We're also going to have Whitney Webb on the show here talking about the deep state, how you may be excited about the unity at the RNC, but still there are deep state agendas at play there. So let's not forget that, even though we see party politics in full force. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because in this down economy, to put it lightly, a lot of us are struggling to make ends meet with food and gas going through the roof, your power bill, winter coming. So if you own a home, then maybe you want to look into American Financing, because they are saving customers an average of $854 per month by tapping into their home equity and wiping out high interest credit card debt. $854 a month is like a $10,000 a year raise, with credit card interest rates just insane and so many people carrying a balance from month to month. Well, that's no way to live. So think about leveraging your assets. That is what wealthy people do. They don't think, oh, I just have this home, I better not touch it. No, they leverage in order to get better financial products and grow their wealth. So this is something that you and your family can learn how to do. Go to americanfinancing.net/ redacted, or call them, ask questions, and learn this and see if it will, in fact, help your family finances. You can call them at 866-890-8434 or go to americanfinancing.net/redacted.
Hey, we have a new graphic we want to share with you. Can we share this, Philip, or am I throwing you under the bus here? So, our show is totally free. You don't have to spend anything to watch our show, and except your electricity bill and I guess your internet access,
your broadband.
But we don't charge you anything, and we're not behind a paywall. So it's free to subscribe, and we have a new look at this. Grim made a brand new graphic here to subscribe to us. You can subscribe on YouTube if you'd like. You can also subscribe on Rumble. We have daily live streams with special guests, great journalists, great independent journalists that we try to support here on the show, not corporate journalists. So please, you can come over and support us. Just subscribe totally for free. On YouTube, Rumble, on X. We're also on BitChute as well. Hit that subscribe bell and then hit that notification bell so you'll know when we go live. Do you guys get alerts? Because I know on YouTube they tend to sometimes not send out alerts when we go live. A lot of people complain that they don't get alerts. Let us know in the comments below. Oh, David mentioned something before the show we should also point out. YouTube has just rolled something out called Gemini, which is their artificial intelligence thing that, a few months ago we were bashing because when you would type in, give me pictures of white people, it would give you pictures of black.
It would say straight up no.
We were like, no, we can't show you white people. Like What you really want is a trans black person. Anyway, so now YouTube, I think, has built Gemini in their artificial intelligence into the comment system of YouTube. So if you notice comments just being deleted, you can thank Gemini for that. Right, David?
Yeah, and the thing is, we already know AI lacks context. So, in my stream yesterday, people were not even saying anything like no swear words or nothing, and they were just getting deleted, and I wasn't even seeing them. And they're somebody was I posted the same comment 3 times, and it just disappeared. So, and that's the comment section and the live stream. So if you guys are you guys are deleting our comments, it is not us. It's woke Gemini.
Woke Gemini.
I wonder if it'll target white commenters, if they just are just silenced now. If the white male, they're like you white man, nope, don't want to hear you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, wait until you and they'll know about you, by the way. Wait until you hear, we're going to talk with Whitney Webb, and she's just published a brand new piece about Peter Thiel and his deep state connections with Palantir, and of course, everything that they know about voters, and they know about you as subversives. So they might know that you're white. They might know that you're pro, you're anti-large government. They might know everything about you already.
I was just going to say, maybe what we should all do is just go add our pronouns to our YouTube bios, because you can do that in the back end, and maybe we can say whatever we want.
Okay.
They, them. All right.
Well, Elon Musk says that Gavin Newsom's new transgender law in the state was his final straw, and he will be moving his companies to Texas. He already did this with Tesla in 2021, but now he says he will do the same for SpaceX and X. Here is his tweet about it. Someone is talking about the new law for parents in California, which we'll talk about in a second. Elon Musk says this is the final straw. Because of this and many others that preceded it, attacking both families and companies, SpaceX will now move its headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. Now, my father has a small business in California, too, and he shared this with me. He goes, I drive around. He's in Northern California, and I see all these people living in the overpass or living in the freeway off ramps. And I think they don't have a permit, but the state of California spends all their time coming to my business place and asking me for more permits, more regulation, more fines, more funds, right? It's mixed. It's so hard. I don't know how my father still does a business after 50 years in California, but he does. And he thinks, okay, they're after me, but not them. How is this fair? I would love for my father to move to Texas, but he refuses. So what Elon Musk is reacting to, and my father too, is the new bill that Newsom just signed into law, Assembly Bill number 1955. This bill prevents schools from notifying parents if their children start identifying as transgender, such as saying, this is my new name, or these are my new pronouns. So if you named your child Molly and they say, no, I'm Mark, the school will not tell you about it. You don't have the right to decide your child's name any longer. California calls this forced outing, meaning the schools out the children as transgender to their parents. Some school districts already had policies that required the schools to inform the parents to tell them about their child's gender transition, but California now forbids them from doing this. So essentially, California is the parents, not you, the parents. Now, they are facing litigation because parents are mad as snakes about this, quite rightfully so. And again, a reminder that transitioning a child is not a neutral act, nor is it an act of kindness. It is associated with increased risk of suicide, and it locks kids into a path of dangerous surgeries and drugs. I can prove that to you. I believe I already have in the preceding months, so look up my other pieces about gender ideology. Now, the California bill says that it can be harmful to force young people to share their full identities before they are ready. Well, the data actually shows that it can be harmful to children to transition at all, but California has blinders on to that actual data. Now, Musk says that he will move SpaceX headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas, and X will move from San Francisco to Austin. But he says that gender ideology is not the only factor. He adds that he and his employees have just, quote, had enough dodging gangs and violent drug addicts just to get in and out of the building. He says in this tweet we showed you earlier that he warned Gavin Newsom a year ago that this would force families and businesses out of California. And Gavin Newsom does not give a shit. He literally doesn't. He's a Death Eater. In the words of my mom, he ruined California. So we are all California exodus, but my father is still there. Market Watch, though, says that the gender bill is an excuse. The mainstream media is saying, no, you're just using this. They say it's clear that Musk has plenty of business reasons to make these moves. California is too expensive, too litigious, too friendly to employees and their rights, and Musk wants to pay lower taxes and lower employment costs. Heaven forbid anyone would want those things for themselves. So let's think of the antithesis of those things. If you want to live in a place that's affordable, not litigious, and business friendly with low taxes and low employment costs, it's not that he's reasonable and want those things. He just wants to escape what I described earlier my father goes through. Now, Gavin Newsom says that Musk's position is just bending the knee to Donald Trump, and he posted this. He really thinks he got him. On X, he says he reposted a Trump post about Elon Musk and says, well, you've bent the knee to Trump. Now, I would say, though, that Gavin Newsom bent the knee to trans advocates and the biopharmaceutical industry that rips healthy young bodies apart and locks kids into mental illness for their life, despite a lot of copious amounts of data that this is hurting them. As it stands, you can leave a liberal state, though, if you don't like this. Now, here's something that I just want to go through a thought exercise that I've been worried about, because for how long can you see a state like California and say, like Gillian Michelson, the trainer, she's
Gillian Michaels?
Yes. She's a lesbian. She's of Arabic descent. And even she says, I have all your woke ideology cards, but I can't live here because you're coming for my kids. So she's leaving. So I just want to know, I just think, how long until California makes it impossible to leave? Now, think about this for a second.
Well, it could become its own country. Once it becomes its own country, and then we don't have to support it anymore, they could stay. They could have their own.
That's not what I mean. I mean, right now you can live in California and you can feel like Jillian Michaels and say, this is crazy, I'm leaving, as I have done, as my sister has done, as my mother has done, right? And my dad is the only holdout. So how long until the laws are such that my dad cannot leave without paying taxes or some kind of giving pound of flesh to California in perpetuity? Now, here's why I ask this, because right now, if you're an American and you want to give up your passport, you can do that, but if the government concludes that you're doing it to avoid taxes, they can declare you an unqualified expatriate and revoke your ability to ever come to the United States, even as a visitor, because the U.S. has draconian tax laws for citizens that want to leave and live abroad. Who can we thank for that? Barack Obama. because his FATCA laws, and he really put the pressure on Americans living abroad. He hated them. He made it really hard to do. So how long until Democratic states follow suit and find a way to punish people or businesses that leave the state seeking greener pastures? It's not a stretch at all to think of Newsom or AOC or any of these other socialist lawmakers putting into place a law that would punish liberal state flight. For example, making laws that require you to pay taxes, let's say, for several years after you leave the state, or forbidding them from even visiting the state. Like, we think you left California because of tax evasion, so now you can no longer come back to California. I don't think that this is a stretch. This is one of the reasons I am even afraid to visit California as a native California. I have a Californian birth certificate, and it scares me. So let me know if you think this is a step too far, or you think that these crazy Death Eater lawmakers from California, AOC level, from New York, would do something like this. Just let me know. It's a thought experiment. And again, something that scares me. Another reason that I tell my dad, please retire, leave California while it is such. So let me know.
Yeah, California, crazy.
Well, what do you think? Would they ever do something like this? I mean, there already has been legislation that if you leave California, you'll pay taxes for at least 2 years. They've already floated that.
Right. Go ahead, Philip.
I mean, the idea is interesting, like the remittance. Like if you leave, like you have to kind of pay back to the your it's just kind of an interesting. I guess remittance is more just like when you send money back to family, right? What is it? It would just be taxes. Like if you leave a state, can they still tax you?
Yes, if you live abroad, you have to pay taxes.
I mean, you still have to pay taxes. I mean, you don't live in a state. You don't live in the state of New York. You still pay taxes. If you work in the state of New York, I mean, you're still on the hook for it, right? And they will come after you. In fact, a lot of times the state tax agencies are actually a little bit more vicious than even the federal tax agencies.
Yes, that's true.
So I can see them doing that. I'm curious, how long until California is no longer a state? One big question right now, though, is California in play for this election? Which is like unheard of, that California, the bluest of blue states, would somehow be in play for Donald Trump. Stephen Miller from the Trump campaign was just asked this question the other day of the states you're considering right now. Right now, they have a 49 state playbook, California being the one that they're not considering, but they now are starting to consider, and that they're open to the idea of making, because every day is important. So how many days do you have to campaign?
Yeah.
Do you want to waste it by going to California? And if you see President Trump flying in to do campaign stops in California, that's going to be a crazy, crazy moment.
Yes.
Crazy moment. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. Whitney Webb is going to join us because there's this huge love fest going on right now at the RNC, and people forget that there is a uniparty still in play. I think there's people compartmentalizing what's going on right now, and there's just this like effusive love right now for in politics. But just remember, there's a deep state. There's a very active deep state, and regardless of how you feel about it, it is a truth. So please don't compartmentalize your feelings about this. Watch. I'm going to sit down with Whitney Webb here in a moment to talk about the deep state, Peter Thiel, the amount of money that's been flowing into Republican coffers right now, and there's really the deep state CIA connections with all of it. We're going to talk about that in moments. We've been talking, of course, about gold on the show quite a bit, but silver right now is a deep, deep play for us because we talk about gold a lot. However, silver is also a fantastic investment, and as you see the U.S. dollar continuing its downward trajectory, losing value under President Biden, silver and precious metals really don't get the news or the coverage that they deserve. Gold gets a lot of the press, but silver is right there. Many financial experts believe silver is the best kept secret in investing. It's an industrial metal, so it's in everything from cell phones to batteries to electronics, solar, electric cars, and the medical industry. AI, of course, the new buzzword. Silver is really, really important for all of this new AI infrastructure that they need out there. So silver is in deficit. We don't have enough of it. So it's both a currency and a commodity. So if you invest in it, hold part of your cash in silver or precious metals, very, very important. So our friends over at Lear Capital can help you get set up right now. And you can go get their free silver guide, which is a shortage guide, their free silver shortage report. You can go check it out right now just by going to LearRedacted.com. That's the website. Go grab it for free. But I encourage you to get on the phone with these guys and call them. They're an American company. They're a patriotic American company. When you call them, you're going to talk to an American in America, not in some Indian call center somewhere. And you can talk to them about maybe converting part of your old IRA or a 401k over into precious metals like Natali and I have done. Silver and gold are a huge part of our strategy to protect our family. So call them right now, 1-800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com. One more time, that's 800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com. Well, Republican delegates at the RNC want President Trump, if he gets reelected, to release the Jeffrey Epstein client list. They want answers. Of course, we all do. They want to know which dirty Democrats are on that list. One delegate was even caught on camera during a CNN report wearing a Release the Epstein client list t-shirt, which went viral. But they might not like what they hear if this list is released and when we start to dig into these connections, especially when you remember that there is a uniparty in the United States of America, very little daylight between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. In fact, one of the biggest billionaire donors to the RNC, including J.D. Vance, is a man by the name of Peter Thiel, the Palantir co-founder. Our next guest has spent years looking into Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Thiel, and the deep state mafia that actually runs our government. Many people don't want to hear about it. And certainly the corporate media over the past few days that's been covering the RNC has been totally silent on this issue. It's actually pretty telling. Our next guest is Whitney Webb. She is that journalist. In fact, she's just published a brand new piece on Peter Thiel and his connections to all of this money that is flowing into this uniparty. And Whitney joins us today. Whitney, great to see you as always.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me back, Clayton.
My pleasure. And, it's interesting over the past few days to watch the corporate media cover the RNC. They all have booths there in Milwaukee. They're all glad handing with all of the different Republicans who are there walking through the halls. They have them on their air. Everyone from Sean Hannity is like, hey, come on over here, Ron DeSantis, sit down and talk with us. And so there's a lot of real coziness between the journalists who are there in that room and the politicians. There's very little daylight at all, any actual journalism that's actually happening there at the RNC right now. First of all, does that surprise you at all?
Honestly, not at all. But mainstream media, I mean, if you look at their coverage and when they give interviews at places like the World Economic Forum at Davos too, there's a kind of coziness there. And when they're trying to secure exclusive interviews with the biggest figures at the RNC, which obviously is going to attract a lot more, attention right now because the Democrat campaign and, Biden's potential to resign, it's essentially like in free fall. I think you're having a renewed focus there, especially because everything that's happening there and with the recent attempt on Trump's life over the weekend is going to essentially, in my opinion, lead many people in mainstream media to believe, and I don't think it's wrong either, that Trump is, the most likely victor in November. So getting back on the good side of the RNC is definitely going to be on the mind of mainstream media. Because a lot of, their success, I guess you could say, in getting exclusive interviews and stories is all related to access, particularly to whichever side of the two-party system is in power at that point in time. So, not that shocking.
Yeah, not that shocking to see the media just really in lockstep there. So very little critical reporting going on there. And this is one story that I'm surprised the mainstream media is ignoring, which is the amount of money that's now flowing. Where is it coming from? And the sort of the dark side of all of this. So you've got this new piece out on Peter Thiel. You've been covering him for many, many years and his relationship here with all of these billions of dollars that are flowing now into the Republican Party. Can you talk about who is Peter Thiel? Why are we now focusing on him, given the fact that J.D. Vance has been elevated to the vice presidential nominee status?
Right. So the reason that Thiel has entered the conversation is largely due to the fact that he is responsible not only for J.D. Vance's political career and political success, but also for his previous career as a venture capitalist. They first met when Vance was attending Yale Law School, I believe. And he listened to a talk that Peter Thiel gave, and then a few years after graduating law school, was recruited to join one of the investment firms that Thiel co-founded called Lear Capital, and was there for a few years, and then later joined some other prominent VC firms, for example, one tied to AOL co-founder Steve Case, running the Rise of the Rest Fund there with him. which was received donors from, some of their biggest donors of that particular fund were people like Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and also the Walton family of Walmart, which, if you're familiar with them, have a very extensive ties to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton family in general. And subsequently, decided to run for office and received $15 million in donations from Peter Thiel for his successful Senate campaign. And, Vance, as people have noted since his nomination, was originally, when he hit the campaign trail initially, a never Trumper. And his entry back into Trump's good graces was directly facilitated by Peter Thiel, who was a major donor to Trump's first campaign and very influential on his transition team during his first term. And so Peter Thiel has, I would argue, rightly been noted as sort of the guiding hand behind Vance. And upon the announcement that Vance would serve as Trump's VP over the weekend, Peter Thiel, as well as a lot of people involved with the so-called PayPal mafia, which again, Peter Thiel is a PayPal co-founder. You have Elon Musk and David Sachs, for example, in that particular network. They announced that they were going to be heavy donors to the Trump campaign, as did Palantir Technologies, which is a company co-founded by Peter Thiel, as well as another co-founder of Palantir with close ties to Peter Thiel, Joe Lonsdale. So a lot of this money from this particular Thiel network has started flowing into a multi-million-dollar a month super PAC with some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley venture capital and Silicon Valley in general.
So what is Palantir, for those of our viewers who don't know what Palantir is and maybe why we should be concerned about it? I mean, money flows in politics all the time. Why should we be concerned about this? $45 million, though, flowing into the Trump campaign. What are they hoping to achieve with that money? You don't just put that money up and just you're happy about it. You hope for an outcome, right? You hope for an outcome. What is the outcome?
Well, there's a very long answer to what Palantir is and a short answer, and I'd like to give you both, but we'll start off with the short answer. Essentially, Palantir is the CIA-funded company that labels Americans based on their online activity as subversives for the CIA. So it's poised to have a major role at the center of the coming war on domestic terror. And if you're familiar with how the war on domestic terror has developed across the several last administrations, really since the creation of DHS under the George W. Bush administration, the framework for the war on domestic terror, including that released by the Biden administration a few years ago, makes it very clear that the war on domestic terror is meant to target dissent on the left as well as the right, namely Americans who protest perceived government overreach or who oppose any forms of capitalism, including stakeholder capitalism. The favor for it of capitalism of the World Economic Forum, for example. And unfortunately, this was an agenda that was launched that has been advanced, not just by the Biden administration, but the Trump administration as well, and the Obama administration before that, and of course, the Bush administration before that. It's a bipartisan agenda.
Uniparty.
And Palantir
the Uniparty.
Exactly. And Palantir has advanced it has just been the contractor of choice for that across every administration. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. So one example I would give on the other side of things, the Democrat side, is that people may know that Biden's top intelligence official since he came to office is Avril Haines, who was John Brennan's deputy at the CIA under the Obama administration, and also a figure in the Event 201 pandemic simulation in 2019. And Avril Haines is also a longtime consultant to Palantir, right? So they actively cultivate powerful people on both sides of the political aisle. And while Peter Thiel, is definitely, it frames himself as right-leaning or libertarian, his co-founder at Palantir and the current CEO, Alex Karp, often brags about stopping the rise of the quote-unquote far right in Europe, and has described that a lot of his decisions at the company at Palantir are propelled by a deep-seated fear that he's going to be murdered by Christian conservatives in the United States. So this is definitely a company that goes across both sides and is part of this bipartisan agenda to target both left and right. And so as far as the long answer goes, it's important to understand the history of Palantir and where it came from. It's really the privatization of a mass surveillance apparatus that was developed by the Bush and Reagan neocons going back to the 1980s. Some people that are familiar with the Iran-Contra scandal of the 1980s, and particularly those hearings, there was a question asked by a senator or congressman, I can't remember who, about the continuity of government protocols to Oliver North. And the hearing was subsequently shut down, preventing North from even having to answer the question or even say no comment or plead the fifth or anything like that. And essentially, the continuity of government protocols involved a database of Americans that was called MainCore that was developed with the PROMIS software. And what MainCore was a database of Americans who were deemed unfriendly by the federal government and could be incarcerated at a time of national crisis. And according to the documentation of what could be, considered a national crisis, internal unrest, mass dissent, nonviolent dissent, mind you, against a U.S. military intervention abroad. So a massive nonviolent protest, for example, against the U.S. invasion of a foreign country, for example, could trigger this. Among many other things, a pandemic, a financial crisis. Because remember, in the 2008 financial crisis, there were talks of imposing martial law on the United States. So this database actually never went away. It was seen being used during September 11th, 2001 in the White House. The last time it was reported by mainstream media was in a now defunct outlet called Radar. And at that time in 2008, 3 million Americans were on the list. Americans do not know if they are on the list, but presumably it still exists. And Palantir, since it was created, has been one of the, is essentially the software that determines if you are on that list or not for the government, because it is a data mining firm, or, it provides software that turns these masses of data that the NSA and all these other intelligence agencies, all this data that it sucks up on Americans through this warrantless surveillance program, it turns all of that into actionable intelligence and basically essentially profiles Americans. And this particular group that developed MainCore, after 9/11 happened, they tried in direct conjunction with the CIA, created a program that was later scrapped, defunded by Congress, called Total Information Awareness. And Total Information Awareness was going to be read by the man that's been considered the godfather of modern surveillance, John Poindexter, best known for being Reagan's national security advisor during Iran-Contra, and the person that was found guilty of who was charged in connection with Iran-Contra, the highest ranking member of the Reagan administration. And so he was going to be in charge of this program that was going to, again, the whole ethos of it was to prevent terrorist attacks, pandemics, bioterrorism events before they can happen. So this is in the wake, again, of 9/11 and the anthrax attacks of 2001. And essentially what they were hoping to do was get all this data, not just of like what Americans were doing online, but their shopping habits, what they were buying, what they were spending their money on, and their healthcare data. And over time, Palantir has essentially become all of that. And that's why we saw during COVID-19, particularly during the Trump administration, became the contractor of choice for harvesting and analyzing COVID-19 health data, and was also it was also used by Operation Warp Speed to determine which priority populations were going to get which vaccines and how many. And a lot of that data involves sensitive health data of Americans, demographic data, and I argued in a series I did at the time called Warp Speed and Race that it was particularly motivated to target minority communities at that point in time with the COVID-19 vaccine. So Palantir is really a company that a lot of people need to know a lot more about. And it's very unsettling, in my opinion, that it's directly donating so much money to the Trump campaign, and that two of its co-founders are also doing that. And Palantir, again, is not the only unsettling teal-backed company that is involved with essentially developing this pre-crime apparatus. In addition, when Palantir was first created, they were created with funding from InQtel, the CIA's venture capital arm, and their only client until 2008 was the CIA. And according to CEO Alex Karp, the CIA was always the intended client of Palantir. Their engineers made over 200 visits to Langley CIA headquarters in their first few years as a company. So the ties with the CIA and Palantir are really as deep as you can get.
So a lot of Americans probably have no idea about this. Those hardworking Americans who go out to a Trump rally, who think that, get your government out of my life. Do not tread on me. Don't tell me what to do. Don't realize that a lot of the money that's flowing into the Republican Party is coming from an apparatus which wants to spy on them, which actually thinks a lot of these Trump supporters, these MAGA supporters who've been labeled as subversives, and they think, oh, Trump's going to protect us from that. No, there's a lot of money actually flowing into the Republican Party from an apparatus which actually believes they are bad people, essentially, right? They're actually supporting an apparatus which actually labels them as subversives. Am I wrong about that?
You're not, actually. One of these Thiel-funded and backed companies that's become a military intelligence contractor, like Clearview AI, which has scraped photos of essentially everyone in the world off of the internet, most of it off of Facebook, which, again, would not exist without the early investment of Peter Thiel. They brag about their role in identifying people that were present at January 6th and helping law enforcement prosecute people who were there. All of whom, of course, are Trump supporters. And after January 6th, they saw a 26% uptake of their services by law enforcement, and used it as a selling point, the fact that they were able to identify Trump supporters so quickly based on their facial recognition database.
This is unbelievable to me. So literally they're yes. So they're really supporting the people that are hurting them. I mean, the Trump supporters should...
I would argue, yes.
They should be demanding from President Trump. And this is the thing. I don't know if President Trump even knows this. This is such a nuanced discussion here. I'm not sure that he's even maybe aware of this. Maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt in this. I don't know how much he knows about the inner workings of Palantir and Peter Thiel. And maybe Trump supporters should demand that President Trump, say, well, I don't want your money. Keep this out. This is exactly hurting the very people that I'm standing here trying to support, maybe, right? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I'm not going to comment on what President Trump or former President Trump does or does not know. I'm obviously not privy to that information. But what I will say, and the reason I brought up total information awareness earlier, is because Bush-era neocons, namely Richard Pearl, one of the architects of the Iraq War, who served in the Bush Department of Defense and who has extremely close ties to Benjamin Netanyahu, for example, he is the person that helped connect Peter Thiel and Alex Karp as they were creating Palantir with John Poindexter, with the explicit purpose of recreating total information awareness as a private enterprise. And since then, the people that have backed that have been the establishment wings of both parties. So regardless of whether Trump knows or he doesn't, there's certainly people around him or who are likely to be in his cabinet that are aware of what Palantir does, because it's a very old agenda that, here I point out how it goes back to the Reagan-Bush era. But you could really make an argument, as Yasha Levine does in his book Surveillance Valley, that the internet's earliest days, going back to when it was a military project called ARPANET, were about counterinsurgency and identifying people who might be a threat to the status quo through their activity on this particular network and through data mining. Which is something to be considered, because if you look back at, the policy of domestic terror, for example, during the Clinton administration, there was a focus on veterans, a focus on militias. In general, the domestic terror apparatus tends to be pointed at Americans who care about the Constitution, who care about reining in the surveillance state, who care about preventing tyranny, who care about ensuring privacy and freedom for not just for themselves, but for future generations. And, by and large, a lot of that tends to fall sort of in right-leaning segments of the population. And I think people should be very unsettled by this, especially when you consider that Peter Thiel is one of the main investors in Rumble, for example. How does Rumble use user data? Does this surveillance apparatus that includes Palantir profile people that use Rumble? It's very possible, if they have a financial incentive to do so, through Peter Thiel. And I think it would be nice to ask clarity from Rumble leadership if they provide user data to U.S. intelligence or if they sell it in any capacity, because also U.S. intelligence doesn't just take it illegally, they also buy our data. Because data is, the main commodity of the modern world. A lot of people have been saying for a few years that data is the new oil. And one of the reasons our intelligence services want all of this data on us so badly is to profile us, which again is precisely what Palantir does for them. And again, they claim that they prevent terror attacks before they happen and all of this crime before it happens. But Palantir is also a pioneer of what they call predictive policing, which is essentially pre-crime. And pre-crime is something that was actually legalized under the Trump administration. It was Attorney General William Barr who created a program at the DOJ called DEEP. Which is an early engagement program, they say, for people who are believed to be mobilizing toward violence. And this all came in the wake of the El Paso Walmart shooting. I think that was 2019 or so. And at that time, then President Trump demanded, or rather called for, big tech companies to develop software to identify shooters before they could commit, mass shootings. And he actually considered a proposal that was brought to him by his friend, former president of NBC Universal, Bob Wright, and was lobbied to him heavily by his own daughter, Ivanka Trump. For a agency called HARPA, which Biden actually created, but they call it ARPA-H. And the flagship program of HARPA was to be this program called Safe Homes, where they would monitor not just Americans' social media data, but also data sucked up by Fitbits, Apple TVs, the Alexa device from Amazon, all of these things in your home, and use that, run it through an AI algorithm and determine if you show any early warning signs of neuropsychiatric violence, with the potential to have you go and attend sessions with a court-ordered physician, and could also lead to your house arrest. All sorts of things were under this proposal. And Trump was allegedly sold on it, according to reports at the time, but it didn't actually end up materializing. Maybe he, someone talked some sense into him, but it certainly wasn't Ivanka Trump, who was the biggest lobbyist for this in his administration. But given the outsized role we're seeing now from Palantir and big tech in funding his campaign, I think there's definite cause for concern there that something like that could resurrect itself, especially considering that a lot of money has been put into this pre-crime apparatus. And actually, there's another company that Peter Thiel funded that's involved with developing this pre-crime system in the United States by actually taking over county by county the nation's 911 emergency call systems. This is an Israeli founded company called Carbine 911. That was nominally headed for a long time by Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister. Jeffrey Epstein funded it with $1 million. Allegedly, Leslie Wexner, his biggest patron, did as well. And it used to have, until the Epstein connection to the company was reported, had the former head of Israeli intelligence unit 8200 on its board of directors. Another Epstein associate named Nicole Junkerman used to be on the board, among others. And they have since left, but other people have joined the board, like former head of DHS under Trump, Christian Nielsen, as well as Michael Chertoff. And Peter Thiel's Founders Fund gave a significant amount of money to this company as well. And so a close Thiel associate who served in the transition team, particularly for the Pentagon of the Trump administration the first time, Trace Stevens, has also served on its board, including when it was openly affiliated with Israeli intelligence and to the present as well. And Carbine 911, what it does.
Can I just ask you, because this past week, USA Today reported that we've had now 8 major outages of the 911 network in the United States. This is a huge concern. I mean, as we head into this election, a lot of people saying, well, could we see some sort of, big national emergency? And now 911 networks are going down across the United States, as the USA Today reported this past week. So
yes.
Is this like an effort for them to say, hey, your 911 network is down? Well, we have the perfect solution for you. It's an Israeli-backed 911 network.
That is essentially what is happening. And it's actually been in the works for several years. For several years now, there has been a lobbying effort to replace the current 911 call center system in the U.S., which is decentralized and, more or less based on each county, to make it a new national federal system called Next Generation, or NG 911. And Carbine 911, since it was created, has become extremely close with the main lobbying group for NG 911 and is slated to be the vendor of choice if and when legislation for Next Generation 911 is pushed through. And again, with major people in DHS, major people with ties not just to the Trump administration, but to Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, and also another Thiel-backed military contractor now building the virtual border wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, Anduril. It's very likely that Carbine 911 would be slated for, preferential treatment going forward. But what's the problem with Carbine 911? Well, according to earlier reports, before they sort of scrubbed major aspects of their website after their connection to Jeffrey Epstein was made public, when you call a 911 call center running Carbine on a smartphone, it can harvest pretty much everything you have on your phone off of it and store it on their database. And they use that database not just to, assess what is going on in the moment or whatever, but they can also use whatever data points they find relevant on your phone to determine, to feed into an algorithm that determines where crime may happen in the future and what crime hotspots may emerge over the coming weeks or months, right? So this is essentially another component of the pre-crime system. And Carbine has also talked about how they plan to be functional in smart cities, where in the future, people won't be calling 911 smart devices on the street, like street lights and other, facial recognition cameras and things like that would be able to notify 911 without a human even being involved in calling and reporting an emergency. So this is a very Orwellian company. Obviously, the people funding it, in my opinion, probably are not to be trusted if you consider what I said earlier about Peter Thiel's involvement with Palantir, his efforts to privatize TIA, and then later, create Facebook, which was essentially launched the same day that another DARPA program called LifeLog that does exactly what Facebook does was shut down. And then Facebook comes back in its place, and its first major investor that puts it on the map is Peter Thiel, and it's collected all of this data about our lives that it shares with our government. And also, it's just complete madness. All these people have been building a panopticon, and we've been freely giving them our data for a very, very long time. And they've been using it to profile us. And this is why, personally, it irks me a lot when people try and say that Peter Thiel is a libertarian. Certainly he claims that publicly in his speeches and books, says certain things. But if you look at his actions and what he has done, creating a tool like Palantir for the federal government is literally the least libertarian thing you could do. Nothing empowers the worst aspects of the state more than a company like Palantir. And
you have to imagine all of these Trump supporters who were at the rally on Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's curious to me how many of those Trump supporters were there who, when they were filing their emails back and forth and getting their information about arriving at the rally, no bags, or here's the list of information from the Trump campaign. How many of those people have been profiled and are now in a database that is backed by Palantir in some capacity, and they have no idea that they're probably labeled as such. And it's mind-boggling to me. So all of these Trump supporters go in to support President Trump. They don't realize that in the back end, the money that's flowing in has been monitoring them and surveilling them and basically labeling them as subversives to the United States.
Yeah, well, again, we don't know the metrics that the Palantir or intelligence agencies use to determine who is a subversive and who isn't. But if in 2008 it had 3 million Americans on it, I can assure you that now in 2024 it is much larger, considering the amount of data that has been sucked up since then and everything that has happened in this country since that time. And so what really concerns me here is that people, again, are believing that this is, Trump is poised to fight the deep state in his second term. But why is he inviting these people in as donors? And not only that, considering people like Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, who helped fleece Americans' wealth during the 2008 financial crisis, and have him be Treasury Secretary. The fact that he would even consider that is frankly very disturbing. And, I think, again, part of it goes back to efforts to sort of define the deep state as a Democrat-only entity. But again, the deep state refers to, at least in my opinion, the unelected officials that serve between administrations in the government, and, sort of like the unelected bureaucracy. And, as we've seen, throughout American history, they run every administration, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And in the case of Trump, he had a first term. We can see what his policy record was. Did he stand up to the deep state on things like COVID or mass shootings or red flag laws and things like that? And I think people should go back and consider the policies and not get so wrapped up in the momentum, perhaps, of political campaigns, because political campaigns are sales pitches. But as we've seen throughout American history, presidents do not keep their campaign promises. If they do, they keep very few. Unfortunately, the stakes are very high in this country. I don't think people can really continue to vote for the lesser of two evils indefinitely when they ultimately are beholden to this same system that is building this bipartisan surveillance state. And what especially concerns me, too, is that some of Trump's rhetoric on the campaign trail this time around is him calling for things like a biometric U.S. entry-exit system. So you'll have to scan your face to either cross the border or fly into an airport or travel internationally. And this is actually something that comes from the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or Agenda 2030. And that's why it's being rolled out across the world in South America, the EU, the UK, between this year and next year. So why is he promoting that? Why are campaign lawyers of his promoting the idea of using biometric digital ID to vote? Why can't we use physical IDs to vote? Do we really need to give in to the digital agenda to save, to resolve these problems in the United States? I don't really think that's true. And I think, again, this speaks to the influence of big tech on our politics. Keep in mind also that, one of the main big tech barons behind Biden is Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt serves on the steering committee of Bilderberg alongside Peter Thiel. And Bilderberg is a closed-door globalist meeting where, people like the chairman of the World Economic Forum and all of these people come together to chart out essentially the course of global events over the following year. You have Peter Thiel, a Republican donor, and Eric Schmidt, a Democrat donor, all on the steering committee. And according to a 2019 Newsweek article, they're the most influential people there, Thiel and Schmidt. So again, the Uniparty agrees on a lot more than it does not. And I think we should look at this surveillance agenda very seriously. And, maybe this information is unsettling for people, as it rightly should be. But the answer to this is very simple. We need to start starving these big tech barons of our data and stop letting them harvest our stuff. And also, you let them manipulate us through the psychological operations we know they're conducting online, because the deep state, right? The military and intelligence communities are on record, have been funding have been put millions of dollars into using bots and other tools to manipulate online discourse. One U.S. Air Force proposal for that exact purpose said that they were researching in 2014 how to use social media to control people like drones, like unmanned drones, right? So, this is the type of research that the deep state has been putting in to manipulating Americans' behavior online. And if, the deep state doesn't like Americans that want to protest against government overreach or want to protect the Constitution, people should be very vigilant, not just about how their data is being used and what they're saying online, but, pretty much every interaction they have, with the online space, including how information they consume impacts them. Keep in mind that Elon Musk is a Pentagon contractor. Would he tell the Pentagon that they can't use the tools they've developed for PSYOPs over the past several years that they've poured millions and millions of dollars into? Would he tell them no when he also relies on Pentagon contracts for the success of his company, SpaceX, for example? I think these questions should be asked, quite frankly. And, not that I want to tell people not to follow news between now and November, but I think, whoever wants to feel more sane between now and November, you might want to be responsible about the information you consume and how much time you're spending online. And it's also possible, again, to cultivate a news feed without using social media. A lot of people have forgotten about RSS feeds. You can put in the websites or URLs of your favorite sites and shows like Redacted and build your own news feed that social media cannot manipulate. And that may be something very important to rely on as we get closer to November. But again, I've been ranting for a while. Sorry. No,
that's what I do. I use an app on my iPad, my Mac called Reader, and it's an RSS reader. And I'm subscribed to specific news sources that I know are not part of the deep state agenda, and who I can get reliable information from, like Unlimited Hangout, your website, and others. And I read it every day. And I think if people are just like tuning into Apple News or Google News, or they get their sources like from Yahoo News, CNN, CNN, et cetera, they're, of course, being fed a steady stream of propaganda that they need to be aware of heading into this election. Speaking of Unlimited Hangout, your new piece just out on Peter Thiel and all of the money that's been flowing into the Uniparty over the past couple of years.